Ever since it sprung from the remnants of Capcom's Clover Studios back in 2007, Platinum Games has become synonymous with a certain brand of over-the-top action. Think the knee-sliding shotgun ballet of Vanquish, the stylish sucker punch of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, or the madcap superhero adventure of the wonderful 101. Throughout all that, there's been one constant: the devilish and daring Bayonetta, as close as the Osaka studio has to an official mascot, who's now, finally, about to get her third outing. I'm Zoe Delahunty-Light, and I've worked with Martin Robinson, the editor-in-chief of Eurogamer, on this preview as he managed to get hands-on with a sizable chunk of Bayonetta 3. And yes, I am green with envy right now, but let me remedy that envy by telling you, right now, that all signs are pointing towards Bayonetta 3 being our Ravenhead Witch's best game yet. Like previous entries, this is an action game cast firmly in the mold of Devil May Cry, and no wonder, as Devil May Cry creator Hideki Kamiya returns as executive director for Bayonetta 3, with it having that unmistakable whip-quick third-person combat at its core. Unlike something like Devil May Cry 5, however, which saw Capcom retool and refine that core combat towards something like perfection, Bayonetta 3 builds outwards in a work of maximalist beauty. This is a game that throws in the kitchen sink, the dishwasher, and the tumble dryer, and just about anything it can at you, to be honest. And the result is intoxicating, if never exactly coherent. There's only 2 sections Martin was free to discuss with me in this last preview before we give our final verdict, but they illustrate the point perfectly well. First, we've got a gauntlet run through modern-day Tokyo with Bayonetta herself, summoned into the real world through an oh-so-fashionable multiverse. What that means, in practice, is getting to see Bayonetta transposed onto something like real life, racing through a city that's been destroyed by a colossal shark demon as she surfs atop the giant dragon Gamora, who, at one point, has boats for skates. Bayonetta 3, in case you hadn't already guessed it, does not do subtlety. In between these overstated, lightly interactive action sequences, the core combat itself has undergone some significant tweaks. In fact, there's a much bigger leap here than we even saw between the original Bayonetta and its sequel. Some tweaks are small with big consequences. The way you handle loadouts has now changed, for example, with the combo sets of Bayonetta 2 replaced by something more focused, while others implementing big changes with a huge impact on the rhythm of action. One of those big changes is the Demon Slave feature. This is Bayonetta 3's big new trick, supplanting the climax summon and Umbran climax of previous games, and allowing you direct control of the beasts you can summon. Their use is managed by a magic meter that's filled up through pulling off combos, and when a beast is summoned, it depletes all the quicker if you spam attacks, but in practice, you're never too far away from being able to call on a colossal ally to help dish out some outrageous levels of damage to the enemies that lie in your path. Please, a moment of silence for those poor fools. And in practice, it leads a giddy new edge to Bayonetta's combat, taking an over-the-top formula and making it somehow even more outrageous. In the short section on offer for Martin's preview, there were 3 demon slaves he could call on. If you can't decide on just one, then have no fear, as you can switch between them with 3 interchangeable slots you can call upon. First off, there's the humongous beast Gamora, who I mentioned earlier, who even gets their own kaiju-esque one-on-one encounters as they stomp across the city. Then there's Madama Butterfly, Bayonetta's stunning infernal demon and alter ego, who here enables action scenes that are something like B-movie classic Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and can step on me whenever she wants. Sorry, Lady D, but you've been supplanted. And then finally, there's the giant spider Phantasma Renée, who triggers web-slinging combat. Summons aren't anything new to Bayonetta. Gamora, Madama Butterfly, and Phantasma Renée have all made appearances in previous games, for example, but the way you interact with them is entirely fresh, with the ability to call them up by pressing the left trigger and then have control over them in combat. That system itself isn't actually entirely new either, and it feels like Bayonetta 3 has smartly lifted a core mechanic from a Platinum Games venture that sadly was never meant to be. That venture was Scalebound. If Bayonetta is Platinum Games' most famous export, then I'd wager Scalebound is perhaps its most infamous. You might remember it actually. It had a massive dragon named Thuban right at the centre of it, so it's pretty hard to forget for that reason alone. Scalebound was going to be a meaty spin on Platinum Games' action formula, built around the unique dynamic between mouthy lead Drew and his dragon partner Thuban, who you could actually direct around the battlefield as he stomps and chews merrily through enemy mobs. This draconic action RPG, directed by none other than Hideki Kamiya, executive director of Bayonetta 3, you'll remember, was going to be an Xbox exclusive. It did the rounds for several years and looked promising, but our large dragon friend was sadly put down and sent out to roam the farm in the sky when Scalebound was eventually cancelled in 2017. Playing through Bayonetta 3 with its new emphasis on demon slave summons, those behind closed doors Scalebound demos immediately spring to mind. So it didn't come as too much of a surprise to dig a little deeper and find that Bayonetta 3's director, Yusuke Miyata, served as a designer on Scalebound. Indeed, given the lingering disappointment that the promising Scalebound never saw the light of day, it's a delight to see that one of its most interesting ideas was salvaged and fleshed out in glorious, over-the-top style for Bayonetta 3. And who knows, maybe it'll provide a fresh impetus to get the aborted project back off the ground again. It's not the only influence from past Platinum Games projects that you'll find in Bayonetta 3 though. Miyata also worked on Astral Chain, the Nintendo Switch exclusive that also boasted quirky interlinked combat of its own. Major change of tact now, but I need to talk to you about VIOLA because I love her. In a later stage made available for the purposes of this preview, Martin got to play VIOLA, a new key supporting character who's also playable for large sections of the game. VIOLA is nothing like Bayonetta. With her blue lipstick, cropped blonde hair and tartan trousers, she's a gangly punk rock Alice in Wonderland in my eyes, and yeah, that is in a large part due to her gobsmacking, grinny, chunky summon Cheshire. You heard me. Cheshire is the Cheshire Cat, effectively. VIOLA's moveset is more refined, centered around a katana that asks for a more considered brand of combat than Bayonetta's over-the-top excess, and whose rhythm reminded me of Raiden in the fantastic Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. To say it's refined might be overstating things a little though, as VIOLA does have her own spin on the demonic slave mechanic in her ability to summon the previously mentioned Cheshire the Cat into battle, enabling some preposterous scenes as the grinning feline wrecks through enemy encounters. I absolutely love him. He's so big and chunky and has these massive teeth, and I need a plushie of him immediately. Okay, going back to the preview, it might all be a bit much if it weren't delivered with Platinum Games' trademark energy and style, made all the more enjoyable by the studio's eagerness to one-up itself with each new project. It's been a fair long wait for Bayonetta 3, true, with a whole 8 years having passed since Bayonetta 2 came out, and for a while there was some understandable concern about whether we'd ever actually get to see Bayonetta 3. But all that worry was for nothing, as it's a delight, and a relief to be honest, to see that Platinum Games appear to have spent those 8 years cramming Bayonetta 3 with so much delirious detail that Martin, and now I, cannot wait to explore it more fully. Bayonetta 3 is a breathless action game that at times feels like the best of Platinum Games, and one that even finds the space to fold in ideas from projects that never saw the light of day like Scalebound. Right now, Bayonetta 3 is looking like it could be the very best game from Platinum Games that we've ever seen. Make sure to keep an eye out for our review of Bayonetta 3, which will be appearing on the channel soon. So that's what the lucky Martin Robinson at Eurogamer thinks of Bayonetta 3 so far. As you can hopefully tell, so far it's lived up to all the expectations. There's so much more I want to tell you about it, but for now we will have to wait. Do you think you'll buy Bayonetta 3, and did you like what you saw in the video? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, thanks very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Eurogamer, as we have a new video out almost every single day. Now, I'm gonna go and practice walking like this, because oh my god, Bayonetta is absolutely killing it, so I'll see you lot next time.